wrote this a couple of days ago. This is kind of just a little snippet of my book, which will be a collection of short stories, true stories of my life with my family. My husband John, my older son JR, and Alex, my baby. This is titled, Contrary to Initial Reports. Everyone thinks they have parenting all figured out. We have all the answers and are eager to impart our wisdom to others. That is before we have children of our own. I was sure that I would spend every moment of my day dedicated to nurturing my children and collapse into bed every night from exhaustion because I was so tired from my parental perfection. I was right about the collapsing part. The rest, well, I couldn't have been more wrong. My firstborn was a fat, bald Buddha, jolly, sweet John Robert, affectionately known as Bubby, from the first moment we set eyes on him. He looked like a Bubby, which I translate to mean chubby, bubbly, Bubby. With John Robert, I set about my days teaching him about the world. My mantra was, stimulate the baby. While my husband John was at work, I stimulated the baby. When he got home, it was his shift to do so, while I caught up on all the housework I neglected during the day in favor of games of peekaboo and reading nursery rhymes. John Robert was a smart baby and met all of his milestones on time or ahead of time. His verbal skills were very advanced, which I attributed to my superior parenting. When John Robert was barely a year old, I found that I was pregnant again. We were thrilled that we would be having a second child to entertain the precocious, curious, chattering monster that we had inadvertently created by stimulating him every waking moment of his life. Alex came into our lives in May, and he too was round and jolly. John Robert was very taken with this new addition to our family. He wanted to hold him and feed him. He also wanted to touch his eyeballs, saying, "Poke it," but mostly he was very loving. Alex also met all of his baby milestones on time, all except one, talking. He was vocal and did have a small repertoire of baby babble, saying "dada" and "what's that?" But shortly after his first birthday, the baby babble ceased, and he began to rattle off the strangest strings of sounds. None of his words were recognizable, but he would often use this little lilt at the end of his utterances as though asking a question. I was left befuddled as to how to answer him. Then, slowly, he crept away from us emotionally. He became like a stranger. Autism is an insidious, cruel thief. Once we had a diagnosis, I looked back wondering when it had happened and why I didn't see it sooner. I still look at Alex's baby pictures, searching his eyes to see if I can pinpoint when I lost him. I don't know what I would have done if I would have known, but it lingers in the back of my mind always. What if? What if? Those two words can eat you alive. What if I had waited longer to have a second child? What if I hadn't had all those amalgam fillings put in 6 months prior to getting pregnant? What if I hadn't had Alex vaccinated? What if I had had more time to spend with him, reading and singing as I had done with John Robert? On and on it goes. Being a mommy was my pride, my identity. When Alex was diagnosed, it rocked my foundation and I collapsed. Everything I knew as a mother was challenged by Alex. Every instinct seemed wrong. He hated being read to. He screamed when I sang. He would push away from me at times, and sometimes he was very cuddly and loving. The most difficult part was trying to engage him. Any attempts I made to connect with him were squashed, and I lost my faith as a mother. This led to such feelings of inadequacy and self-loathing because I couldn't be enough for him. I was unable to find things to say to my own child. I found that we would spend hours together and we barely connected. I was so lost. I got angry at him, I got depressed, and eventually for a time I gave up. The more depressed I got, the harder it was to rise to my own expectations of what I should be doing for him. This cycled through more depression and less attempts on my part to do anything about it. I felt like I couldn't wake up from a horrible dream where my baby was slipping down a cliff into an abyss, and I just didn't have the strength to pull him back. I would tell myself that I needed to get my shit together, stop all the nonsense and drama of feeling sorry for myself, and I would rally. Inevitably, things would go wrong because I just didn't know what to do, and I would retreat from him again. I couldn't deal with how inadequate I felt, and I wasn't able to recover him from his autism, like all those other saintly parents I read about. Anytime there was a new book, magazine article, television show, or movie, anyone who knew me would call to tell me to turn on the TV or give me a website because there was some parent who found the key to unlocking their child from the world of autism. I hated those parents, and even more, I resented the people who had to tell me about them. Although rationally I knew that they were just trying to be helpful, it felt like they were saying, hey, here's what you need to do to save your kid. So in my mind, I was a failure, and everyone knew it. In fact, those feelings still linger. Contrary to all the books and magazine articles, there is no one thing that miraculously unlocks a child from their world of autism. In fact, it's a very slow, almost indiscernible process of growth over many, many years. The process is different for everyone, and to say, this is the key, gives false hope. Recently, John and I had an argument about a lesson he was doing with Alex. The whole thing blew up to a full-scale screaming and crying scene, followed by a period of silence that lasted for about 48 hours. I'll spare the details, but the sitcom-style resolution for me was the realization that I was very anxious about the fact that we were just starting a new homeschool program for Alex. We had expert consultants, therapists, and tutors who were coming into our home to teach Alex, something that had been my job. If I were the type to be particularly attuned to my own emotions, I suspect that I was feeling threatened. I may have felt like a failure. Maybe I was feeling like I'd screwed things up, that unlocking autism and unlocking Alex had been my job for the past 8 years and my key wasn't working. Cue the music. This is the part where I learned that I needed to let go. Everything my children do is not a direct result of my performance as a parent. They will falter. I will flounder. But mostly, so long as we work hard and continue to make progress, life is good. I need to give up some control. I need to stop beating myself up. Besides, a lot of it is John's fault. So that's one short story of many that I hope to eventually promote into a book. And as I said, right now I'm working on producing my play that will